I cannot wait to have this conversation, to talk to him about what he's planning, what he's thinking, what he's doing. Would you join me in welcoming Pastor Luke Pierson? The height difference is nothing to pay attention to. Don't worry about that. Not yet. Push it. There you go. Nope. Try it again. I think you just turned it off. There it is.
Hello. Oh, hot mic.
Hot
Yeah,
mic.
Brian had suggested that we stand,
Oh, is that right?
and I was like,
Nah, don't do that to a brother.
I didn't want. It's especially with the camera. It might just be.
Well, there's so many differences, not the least of which is how we're dressed, but you know.
Hey, I'm just no bow tie.
No bow tie. This is me relaxed, Doc.
That's Apologia style for
This
you.
is Apologia. This is
like
V-Dub Apologia style.
I like it. I like it. As long as you're the best dressed. But you and Sandlin are competing, I think, for best dressed. So.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I throw on the bow tie, it'd be another level.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And James isn't even wearing either one.
James is not yet, but I'm not gonna say nothing about that.
It's not needed.
Yeah, he's not here. We'll leave that alone.
It's not needed.
Anyway, man, I'm excited about this endeavor that I just heard about and wanted to ask you, and I've got a list of questions I kind of want to walk through with you on, but I want to first start out in this way. And I want to say this publicly in front of everybody. It's recorded and all of that. And you and Apologia have been an instrumental part of my discipleship for a decade or more. I appreciate the work that you put in. I appreciate, even from the early days of you being alongside Pastor Jeff and you guys going out and doing street evangelism, stuff like that. I cut my teeth on a lot of the work that you guys put in long before you ever got a studio. Long before that, I've been watching you. I've been a fan. I've become a friend. And I love the work you do. So I just want to start out by saying thank you.
Man, I appreciate that. I thought it was a win that we got you to be able to MC. So I'm honored to hear that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That said, I want to jump into this. Speaking of the time that you've spent for years now at Apologia, are there any experiences through that process, whether it's kind of the street evangelism piece or in studio interviewing people? Is there anything that you would point to say, this shaped me? I've learned how to be better at asking questions or interacting based upon this. Is there any things that you could share in that realm?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I was just thinking back to, it's funny, David Bahnsen, I didn't know what he was going to talk on for sure, and he mentioned a couple things that I was like, oh man, it's going to tie in perfectly, and he said his dad's two favorite words were trust and obey, right? And so I wanted to talk about like for me, the two words are just be faithful.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing, same concept, and that's something that, Jeff and I have learned over the years is we've just been faithful. We just been out on the street. We just had a camera with us. Nothing special. It's just like we're just sharing the gospel with people. Yeah. And so just learning through that experience, just being out there, being faithful, just trusting God, like David said, trust and obey. And it sounds simple.
Yeah.
It's not always simple.
Yeah.
It's definitely challenging at times. And Jeff reminded me today before we came up, I think he was saying we had, when we started Apologia Radio and all that, like for the first 6 years or so, we had like 115,000 people. No, not even. It was like 100, maybe 115. It wasn't a lot. It was not a lot of people. It was just, but we just were faithful. We just kept going out and doing what we felt God was calling us to do, and just.
Did you know the success that you guys were having? Let me say it this way. How did you experience that success? Because you obviously saw it. I mean, it was either through folks subscribing or views or hours of views or length of time or the feedback that you were getting from others. How did you experience that success?
Yeah, I think, early on, I would say probably from just podcast downloads, because we kind of entered the game when that was a new thing. We started on terrestrial radio, and about 3 years in, we realized that the majority of our listeners were listening on the internet. So that's when we started Apologia Studios, because we're like, why are we paying all this money to have someone record? We can just do it ourselves. And so that was originally, we were watching like iTunes, and that was before any other podcast platforms, really. And so we're just kind of seeing the downloads. And then obviously when we got on YouTube, we started to see some of the numbers go. And it's funny, we joke about this still. One of our most viewed videos, it's in the millions. I don't know, maybe 1.5 or so. It was a conversation we had with some Jehovah's Witnesses, and we just had a stupid little $50 recorder we put on the pic. It was at a park, like at a picnic table, and like the dumbest, cheesiest. No, sorry, Jeff. Cheesiest graphics. He did the best he could. That you've ever seen in your life. And it's like one of our most viewed videos, and it's funny today, like, we got our crew here today, and they do a phenomenal job, and they just laugh at some of that stuff, but, it was just being faithful, so.
It's impressive to see the impact of things like that when the content is substantive, right? It's the production value isn't as much of a requirement, and again, no shade to those who do great production. I'm grateful for that. It definitely draws the attention, but if you have phenomenal production and yet aren't substantive, over time that'll have diminishing returns. Absolutely.
Oh, that's a huge point. I mean, there's guys out there now that we look at, that maybe have great production, and we're like, I don't think they're going to last long because the substance is weak, and so, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. As we consider this, I want to kind of transition to what you're talking about now. Yesterday was easy. It's a compelling title. Yeah. Kind of what's behind it? What were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, really, it starts with, I think everyone here hopefully knows our history with the Navy SEALs. I don't want to take all the time to get into that story, but
you're going to have to tell a little bit.
I'll tell
Give
a
them a
little
cliff
bit,
note.
Really, since it had to do with COVID, and so we got introduced to. There's a long story there. We got introduced to some Navy SEALs that were being sidelined because they wouldn't take the COVID vax, and so it was actually, I don't think Cross Politics not here yet, but we were at one of the Fight Laugh feasts in Nashville. We met one of them, and a week later, Jeff and I were on a plane to Virginia Beach and had a secret, literally, like we had to keep it secret meeting with 30-ish active duty Navy SEALs who were all Christians. Just saying we're not going to take this, not just because we're Christians, because it's an unlawful order, because we took an oath to the Constitution, And so, anyways, I've gotten to know a lot of those guys. One of them was actually here yesterday. He'll be back tomorrow. Asa from Turning Point, shout out. So, one of their slogans. So I've kind of, dove headlong into Navy SEAL culture, and one of their slogans is the only easy day was yesterday, and that's been really important to us. And so I that's basically where I got the title, being a little shorter and catchier. But the idea is just like, as men, especially Christian men, like, suck it up. Yesterday, you think, yesterday was easy compared to today. So, like, let's just work hard and get done what we need to get done. So,
what's the message that you're hoping to convey with this? Are there themes that you're trying to approach with this particular podcast?
Honestly, it's biblical manhood is the basis, and really, it's been something that's been on my heart that I've been needing to address in our own church. The last 3-4 years, and we had one of our man camps. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and Jason Storms? Yeah. So we had Jason Storms, and he's all
brother. You gotta start having your boy in. Like, don't forget me.
I got you, bro.
Okay, dog. I'm just saying.
You're from Oklahoma though. It's cold and up north in the winter, but you got it. You're from Oklahoma, right?
You call, I'm coming.
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
Done. So, anyways,
you can clap for that. You can clap for that.
Yeah. I think that was your wife clapping. So we had Jason, and it's phenomenal. That's one of his main things is biblical masculinity and challenging men within the church, and so many of our men just came. We're like, we need more of this, and so it helped me realize that I need to really be pouring into the men. They're asking for it. They're hungry for it. And so that's kind of put me on a journey, just being able to teach our men. And so a lot of what I'm doing is just coming from me being challenged, from taking that then and challenging our men within the church. So they're just, the theme is biblical masculinity, but there's topics range all over the place, and a lot of it I've tied into stuff I've taken from the SEALs that's grounded in biblical principle, right? So if I can see something they're doing, which there's a lot they're doing, I'm like, man, that's like straight Bible right there. Like, I'm going to apply that, best I can.
You got any example that you can share that that you're seeing kind of?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I got my Bury the Excuses shirt on today. And it's funny. This is the other thing that, this was one of my episodes, but a funny thing that when I heard David talking about the garden, so, there's a grave, we're burying Genesis 3:12, right? He's talking about, Eve eating the fruit and Adam saying, well, now I got to work, right? It was like he was already working, but that's one of the themes is like, the seals, like they're not allowed to have it. You don't have an excuse. If you have an excuse, see it, you're done, right? Like, and that's a major issue I see within the church with men. Just they always got an excuse, and a lot of times it's their wives. We're dealing with a situation right now where the husband's he's being irresponsible and neglecting the covenant he made with his wife, and it's all her. And I challenged him. I was like, brother, like let's get rid of that in the garden. You're literally saying it's the woman you gave me, And so I'm trying to challenge them and like, don't make excuses. Yesterday was easy. So there's the end tagline I always say is stay hard, and there's another saying with SEALs is get hard, stay hard, and so that's something, I don't know, Pastor Zach's in here somewhere, but he can verify. There's been times the last few years where it's been difficult, and sometimes it's daily for us. We got a challenging situation going on. We'll be like, stay hard, bro, and we don't just say it as like a catchphrase. We like mean it, like stay hard, like we got to fight, So.
That's good stuff. Is this something that I know it's geared toward men, so should ladies just avoid it altogether?
No, I mean, I see a bunch of ladies in here. Yeah. Send it to your husbands.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think, I've had a number of ladies come up and say, thank you so much for doing this, and I appreciate that. And so, no, absolutely not, because it's a lot of biblical principles. Obviously, I'm trying to directly challenge men and young men. But I think a lot of wives like it because they're probably going, my husband needs to hear this. So
that's been the case for me. I know with the podcast that I run with my partner Darrell Harrison, a lot of times our thought process is this is for definitely Christians and aimed primarily at educating and equipping Christian men. Right? It's not biblical masculinity, but it's culture through a biblical lens with the hope of informing men to do the right thing. And what we found is that there are a lot of ladies, because of either a homeschool situation or cleaning the house or what have you, and 3-hour podcast, they'll listen to the podcast, and most of the men who are connected with us have received it because their wives have said, "Hey, this is really good. You need to listen." Yeah. And so we get a following that way. My guess would be that some of that would be very, very similar.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, as it relates to kind of reach and what have you. How do you feel the platform of Apologia maybe helps push that a little bit farther? Does it? Are you feeling like you've got to create a brand new niche for what you're doing? What does that look like? Yeah,
no, that's a great question. Yes and yes.
Yeah.
So obviously, starting something, you've done it. Right? Yep. Starting something that's completely from scratch where no one knows or cares who you are, right? Trying to build an audience is challenging. It takes time, right? I'm talking about working, to tie in again with David. Like it takes time, it takes effort, and not giving up when you only have 5 listeners, and like you just, you keep working at it. So having that platform already has definitely been helpful because I already have somewhat of a voice, So that's been helpful, but at the same time, like if you look at our views, I don't have as many views as yesterday was easy as some of our other stuff, and so I understand, like, I've had a lot of people come and they're like, what is this? So I'm glad to be able to talk about it. But yeah, so yes to both questions.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the landscape of, there are 2 thoughts I have. One is that everywhere I go, and you may be the same, and you get opportunity to speak to different pastors, different leaders, different thought leaders. I'm encouraging pastors, specifically, pastors who have, a nice church and they're doing well, to have a podcast. So, and again, that creates a proliferation of that. But my encouragement of them is, don't think about speaking to a national audience, right? Think about, this is one of the ways that most of my people at my local church consume content. And as a result, I want to be a voice in that space speaking biblically. And so I encourage pastors to do that. When I think about what you're doing, again, you have a national and international platform. And so you're able to speak to kind of a broader audience. Second thought is that there are often, I think, a category of men who are chasing ideas, and we don't have to name names, but that are foreign, either foreign to Scripture or in complete opposition to Scripture, or are looking for the next thing, right? How is what you're doing different from that?
Oh man, that's a good question. So as far as the first question, I've encouraged pastors to do the same. Wade, shout out to Apologia, Utah. I've talked to him about that, had that conversation, and it's like if you're anything like me, I constantly have a podcast or a sermon, like to the point where my wife's like trying to do homeschooling, and I'm walking through, and she's like, "Can you turn Doug's voice down, please? I'm trying to," Right. So I was like, "Sorry," So I've constantly got something going on, and so you're right. Like a lot of guys, like especially, a lot of guys are even like, if you're working the trades or you have a lot of drive time, like you can redeem that time by listening to podcasts. So it's a great avenue. So yes to that. And the second question,
How are you different?
yeah, I mean, who's the probably the biggest voice into like men that's a bad influence? It'd be Tate, and I've never listened to him, but I know a lot of people that have, especially the younger dudes. They're listening to him, and because he's. I mean, this is getting into another conversation, but a lot of the younger dudes have just been fed up since COVID, and they're seeing this guy like, oh, this guy's masculine, but then they're taking a lot of what he says, and a lot of the bad stuff that he's saying as well. And so that definitely has had an influence on me wanting to do this, where it's just like there's not a lot of voices out there that are like Christian, grounded in biblical principles, challenging men. So that was definitely something that influenced me wanting to do this.
My sons who are in their early 20s, I know I look 25, so y'all don't have to, I'm just saying. I got sons in their 20s. You catch that later. So,
did you start having kids at 15?
My man.
And your wife must have been 5.
She was real close.
Yeah.
Real close.
Yeah.
That said, they know if you say Andrew Tate, they're like, and they can rattle things off, and they're looking at the vacuum of Christians in that space speaking, and so that's a good thing to know. I mean, they've got their dad who's always telling them, but it's always helpful when they're hearing other voices outside of dad saying the right kinds of things. And so I'm excited that you're putting this together. How do you balance, man? You've got a lot of hats, man. You got a lot of hats. You've got, pastor, elder, you've got, Durbin regulator. You've got, all the travel that you guys do within Abortion Now. And I mean, just a lot. How do you balance another project on all of those things?
Yeah, I appreciate that. By the grace of God. No, it's there's a thing I tell my men a lot, just in counseling. That we as men have to compartmentalize things, right? Like right now, so I always describe the mind of the man like a file cabinet, right? And so right now I got the Virgil folder out, right? We're doing this, as soon as we get done with this, I'm putting that out and getting out probably figuring out what I'm gonna eat for lunch folder, right? And so that's what I tell all my men is like, you have to just focus on one thing at a time, and you have to keep them, organized. And so I think God designed our minds like that so that when we have a task in front of us, we can slay it, right? And so we're really good at that. We're not good at multitasking. Our wives are excellent at multitasking, and I think that's because they have to keep track of multiple children. And I always tell this story just quickly. It's a funny story, but I have 3 kids. My son, who's about to turn 4, is the pickiest eater I've ever seen in my life, and I don't understand it.
Right.
I'm the smallest in my family. True story. I have
Really?
I have a brother that's 6'10".
Bro,
and one that's
what in the world are y'all eating
6'8".
over there?
I mean, we drank a lot of milk, but like no one in my bloodline has ever been picky about food. I don't get it. Anyways, so when he was like 1, we were really frustrated one night. We're trying to get him to eat something, and he just wasn't cooperating. And so I'm like, I'm going to go try to figure out. So I'm in the kitchen trying to figure out some way to get him to eat this. Meanwhile, my older two, my daughters, were like in the schoolroom murdering each other. And my wife's like, are you going to deal with that? And I'm like, deal with what?
Right.
And she's like, do you not hear? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I was so focused on this. There's probably blood and maybe limbs missing. I don't know what's going on. And so she got frustrated with me, and I was like, I honest to God did not even hear what, and she was aware of everything that was going on. I was aware of what I was focused on, and so the point I'm getting to is that as men, we just need to try our best to stay organized, one thing at a time. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give to men is before you walk in the door after a long day at work, you had better put the work folder away and get out the family folder. And so that's been, early on, there's a saying that for pastors, the church becomes your mistress. It's true. And so our families always end up being second to the church. And so, I've had to there's certain days and certain times that's dedicated to my family. And unless it's an emergency, I'm not interfering with that. And so that's one of the ways I try to keep balance. Yeah.
That's good. As I think about, you and as we're talking, there are things that are popping in my head. I'm like, I want to ask him about that. So I'm gonna
Go, do it.
So you talk about how much you listen to podcasts. I'm thinking, what is Pastor Luke listening to? What is in his podcast, realm? He's going, I have these podcasts. Yeah. What are you listening to?
Just thinking.
That was
easy. It's on my list. It's on my list.
Good answer. Good answer.
Blog and Mablog, podcast. I subscribe to all the Fight Left Feast Network.
Sure.
Listen to a lot of Joe stuff, Andrew Sandlin, wherever he's at. I get real excited when he pops up one of his sermons. So, Sean Ryan show, one of my favorites.
Interesting.
You know that show?
I don't.
So he was a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
His show's probably second podcast in the world right now.
Wow.
So yeah, he started out not too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and he does super long form 5-hour podcasts where he'll get Navy SEALs on and he'll just do their whole life story.
Wow.
And that's one of my favorites.
I may have seen that.
Yeah.
It's a video and they just kind of two
video and it's in podcast.
Okay, I think I have seen one of those.
So he does a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And he actually, I think he came to Christ a couple years ago. So it's been cool to see that because we love him, we love his show, and we've been as pastors we're constantly praying for that guy. But anyways, that's one of my favorites. But 5-hour podcasts, it takes some time to work through those. So. Anyways, that's definitely one of my favorites as well.
Since I'm asking the questions, man, I get to ask all the ones I want to know about. What drives you? What wakes you up, keeps you going, has you going? Okay, next day, let's go. What motivates you? What is your hot button? What's the thing that keeps you moving?
That's a good question. The correct answer, is just. The glorious, Jesus,
Jesus,
glorify God, right? I know it sounds cheesy, but there's some truth to that.
Sure.
And I'm a very task-driven man, so I'm usually waking up I have a running list on my phone of stuff I got to get done there. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. If it's not on my calendar and it's not on my list, it doesn't happen. So usually that's allowed me today or every day. It's just all right, what do I got today? I got to get this, and this done. And trying to do that in a way that honors God.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything else? I'm thinking about 3 things, maybe.
What are you thinking?
No, I'm just asking. These are your hot buttons. These are your.
Oh, so you want specific topics?
Yeah,
okay,
gotcha.
I got you. Yeah. Well, obviously, biblical masculinity is probably one of my favorite things to talk about right now. And so that's, again, a lot of this is just coming out of stuff I'm working through in my own life. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, and abortion now is going to be a major one. We're super busy with that. And then, obviously, our the church, so, the biblical manhood stuff is coming a lot through the church. So the church is, my family's, I try to make a family number a priority, and then the church and abortion now. And so those are probably what consumes most of my thoughts.
Yeah. Let me get back to the podcast piece. What are you hoping that someone listening to this takes away? Like, what do you, once they hear this, you're hoping they go and do or are encouraged to experience what exactly?
Yeah, well, if you haven't heard the show, I'd love for you to go. And I think very I actually have a degree in construction management and like architectural engineering, so that's how my mind works. Very organized, so like throughout this show, I've tried to keep things very organized and like driving a point. So like it's helpful to go back and start at the beginning and kind of work through because they kind of all tying together. And so, yeah, I just really want to challenge men to be better men, not just to be a man, but to be a Christian man, to put God first and then your family. And I think the theme of this conference, right, up from the ashes, like if we're going to rebuild this the culture from what, President Biden's left us, like it has to start with the men. It has to start with godly men leading their homes. And even before that, it's got to start in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Right. We need strong pastors that are courageous, that are going to stand on biblical principles. We learned that in COVID. There's a lot of weak pastors out there.
Yes, we did.
That folded like a lawn chair as soon as even the smell of trouble hit them. And so like it's got to start in the pulpit, and then it's got to start with the men leading their families. And if we're gonna rebuild the culture, it's got to start there. So that's kind of really what I want guys to get.
Got it. I'm going to go backwards for just a bit,
Yep.
and then we'll begin to kind of wrap things up. I wanted to, is there a particular podcast or a particular subject or topic as you kind of go back through the library of things that you dealt with at Apologia, maybe something you've done in a street evangelism space where you point to and think either A, that was my favorite, or that was the craziest?
Oof.
Yeah, that's a long library.
Yeah, we've got some crazy stuff on Apologia Studios.
I'm thinking about debates. I'm thinking about all kinds of crazy stuff.
Honestly, some of the craziest stuff we probably have.
Or your favorite.
Yeah, I'll try to think of that too. Some of the craziest stuff we have is probably just from the abortion mill. Just some of the nutty people that would come out, the Satanists and ringing cowbells and Antifa being out there and like just weird. One of the craziest things I ever had happen was the Antifa was out there and they were like blaring megaphones on our faces with music, and we had like these big, like 6 foot tall signs, and I was like literally like built a wall around me, like saying, and this hairy Antifa girl like came all up with booty shorts on and was like all trying to like twerk on me and stuff. It was very disgusting. And that was probably one of the weirdest, strangest things I've had happen to me. And it was just like, are you serious right now? Anyways, we've had some crazy stuff. People love to murder their babies.
Yeah.
Favorite? Oh, man, I don't even know. I'd have to think about that. I mean, I love what I'm doing with Yes Sir It's Easy because a lot of it's so personal to me. But man, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd have to think on that.
Yeah, you need to think about that because folks are going to, as the popularity of this particular podcast rises, folks are going to have that question for you.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've been, again, like I said, a fan of your work, a fan of what you're doing. I'm excited for this next phase. I know you've already started it. Kind of tell folks where they can go, where they can hear about it, how they can download it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, just go to YouTube. They're on YouTube. So they're every 2 weeks we put them up. So. Okay. I think I've got episode 16 coming out this next week. So I try to write them ahead and record them ahead of time. So the goal is, this is going to be season 1. So my goal is to do in 31 episode seasons. Reason being, because then I want to take those and put them into a book for like a daily reader for men.
Nice.
So like when you're doing your business in the morning, you can
see your thing and do your,
you
I like that.
So that's the goal. So I think I have 25 written right now. So anyways, that's the goal. That's what I want to do. And
what is your process? Is it all manuscripted? Is it something you kind of write out and then kind of do, or how do you? And is it video recorded? I haven't seen one yet. Okay.
Yeah, it's all manuscripted, and I did that intentionally. So I keep them all. They're all right about 7 minutes. So they're 1,200 words is my goal, to get 1,200 words. So they're all manuscripted, and then we have a teleprompter and all that. So there is the video form, and then you can also get the podcast form on any of the podcasts.
How many raise your hand if you've seen this already? Raise your hand if you haven't seen it. I won't do a "what's wrong with you people" kind of thing. I won't do that. But because I haven't yet seen it. I mean, I'm just now hearing about it, and I definitely want to check it out. 7 minutes, that's really, really good. And so process-wise, just briefly, you sit down, kind of crank out a number of them, or you just, as you go, what do you, how
so I usually will record 3 to 4 at a time.
Okay.
Wherever Carmen's at, he knows. I've tried to do more than 4, and then like my eyes start to get weird, and then I look like I'm high or something.
Yeah,
so,
I've done those where I've done the manuscript where teleprompter. After about 3. My reading gets really poor. My dyslexia kicks in. I'm reading stuff backwards and stuff like that.
And then you got to re-record stuff 15 times.
And the editor's just looking at you like, really?
Yeah.
Like, can't you just read? It's right there in front of you.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not the hardest part, but what I learned, if you go back and watch the first 3-ish are a little rough, but what I learned is to write the manuscript in a way that with pauses and commas where I want them to be, so that's helped make it a little smoother.
Rather than writing it for a reading audience, like where someone's reading grammatically really tight, you have to almost do some kind of phonetics and some finesse to make that work. I've had to learn the same thing too.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to share with the people about the podcast that I haven't asked you about?
I don't think so. I mean, I just would love to have people try. I mean, again, it's not about me. It's not about building my name or my brand. It's all for, it's all part of Apologia Studios. It's just, I really want our men to be better. Yeah. And that's it. So, yeah.
Well, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to dive into it. I'm hopeful that you will as well. Things like this get viral when you share them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to encourage you as an audience, if you believe in kind of what's going on and the kinds of things that Pastor Luke is speaking about as it pertains to biblical masculinity, is that you jump onto the podcast, that you share it with others, that you commend those people that you share it with to do the exact same thing. That's how something gets viral. That's how people begin to take notice of the value that's being brought to them. So I want to encourage you to do that. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, man, to get a chance to talk with you out here in public. So please thank my brother, Pastor Luke. Appreciate it.